Praise Yah. Welcome to I believe this is the Midnight Oil. We're going to do a little Q&A tonight. Everybody who's watching, welcome, brothers and sisters. And we have some people coming in later on, so we'll just start and allow them to come in. All right. Sister Anita, you had a question, very important question.
Shalom. Yes. My question is it's about giving a tenth 3 times yearly. I would like some clarification on that because I've never heard that before. So if you could help me out with that one.
Yeah, yeah. I think that the 3 times yearly, let's see if we can pull it out. And you may have to clarify what about it you want to talk about. Let me see.
Okay.
See if I could locate that verse real quick. I believe it's in Numbers. There we go. It's in Deuteronomy. All right. So it says here, I'm not sure about the 3 years, but there's a third year that it mentions. It says here, when you have made an end of tithing all your tithes of your increase, the third year, which is the year of tithing, and have given it to the Levite, the stranger, the fatherless, the widow, that they may eat within your gates and be filled. It says, then you shall say unto Yahuwah your Elohim, I have brought you away from your set apart things out of my house, and also have given them unto the Levite, unto the stranger and the fatherless, and to the widow, according to all your commandments, which you have commanded me. I have not transgressed your commandments, neither have I forgotten them. So this tithing that was given, it was like intervals. Um, because of the way that their society was functioning, tithe at the time to support the Levites. The services of Yah didn't take, electricity, and they didn't have to pay no bills, and nobody had to pay no electric bill or no car bill. Nobody had to pay nothing. They just needed what they needed to survive. So each year, the people would pay the tithe was given each year of their agricultural uh, and their increase, the increase of their cattle, the increase of their crops, the increase of their land. Every increase was collected throughout the year, and then they gave it to the Levite. And then the Levite that was in that land, that particular area where you lived, would collect that and then pay a tithe to the high priest at the temple. Every third year, the collection wouldn't only be to the Levite, it would also be to the widows, it will also be to the fatherless, it will also be to the orphans and things like that. So every third year, everything that was collected because of the agricultural environment that they had, where they had harvest from spring all the way to the fall, all of that was gathered. That's why we have tabernacles, bring everything into the storehouse. So everything that was gathered at the end of the year in the fall was then given to the Levite. But every third year, it was given to the Levite, and then the Levite would then split it between the widow. Let's look at it. What you put together would actually be for the widow, the fatherless, the orphans, the fatherless, and even the stranger that needs help. You see that?
Um,
So you see right here, you make it. You first tithe to the Levite,
mhm.
the stranger, meaning to help the foreigner, to help the orphans, those who are fatherless, and to help the widow.
Okay, so
Mm,
it's that's the scripture that I was talking about. So every third year,
yeah,
how does that pertain to us? Because I, well, I'm just gonna say I was taught out of the old church that
yeah.
we pay a tenth, pay period when we get paid. But
Yeah.
now, so how do we go about doing that today?
The the thing is the the principle of the tenth. Is not necessarily something that has to happen on a yearly basis. The reason why it was every year was because agriculturally you need a couple months for things to grow and ripen and be harvested and all of those things. So you absolutely needed to wait until the fall to gather up all of the wheat, the grain, the fruit, the olives, the grapes, and the cattle, and all. You had to wait till the fall to actually gather all those things up. So that's the reason why tithe was set up in that way. As far as and it wasn't that tithe was only separated in the fall; it was collected in the fall. So it wasn't that only in the fall the increase at the end of the year. It was more like there was a harvest in the spring that will be collected and set to the side. The cattle would give, I believe, the cattle only gave birth in the spring. It's a crazy thing. If you guys have confirmation of that, let me know. I think the cattle mated in the fall and gave birth in the spring, so they would separate the cattle, a tenth of the cattle during that time as well. And then in the summertime would be the figs, the olives, the wheat, the corn, and all of those things. So they would set aside all these things throughout the year, and then at the end of the year they would bring it uh to the to the to the Levite. Now, sometimes they would bring it to the Feast of Tabernacles to give to the temple. Um, I think in Deuteronomy chapter 14, it talks about if you have tithes to bring and it's too much, they said to exchange the tithe for money and then bring the money there to buy the sacrifices that you needed and things like that, or the animals that you would need and things like that. So there's an equivalent, there's an exchange in money, and it wasn't separated, or the tithe wasn't separated only at the end of the year. It was separated throughout the year, and at the end of the year, it was given to the Levite. So in a sense, the increase, when it talks about the increase, that can come from whatever. I remember in North Carolina, I was the elder of a fellowship in North Carolina, and when I was teaching, and this brother came and he had tomatoes, and he said, this is what it is. He gave tomatoes, and I was really happy that he gave about those tomatoes. He said, "This is from my garden. And give a tenth to what grows from my garden to you." You know, my definitely ate those tomatoes. I mean, it was definitely you know a blessing. But this is what Yah is referring to. So the reason why everything was done in that manner was because of the economy that they had. They had an agricultural economy. So a lot of those things didn't be gathered up until the end of the year in the fall when there was a completing of the gathering. If you read the very beginning of Tabernacles, let me show you what it says in Leviticus 23.
So it's equivalent to money for us today, right? Our jobs.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
I would say it's not necessarily equivalent to money, but it's the focus is what provides the service to be done, what allows the service to continue. The Israelites, the Levites didn't work. This was their this was their duty. So what they were taking care of for the Israelites was their food. They were taking care of their um, everything that they ate. They were taking care of the food of their families. They were taking care of their ability to survive while they serve, not only in the temple, but while they serve in the area that they lived. Because the Levites lived where the people lived. They lived all throughout the kingdom. So they would constantly have to teach the scriptures, the Torah specifically, in those areas. And then when they get the tithe, they would have to pay tithe to the high priest. So whatever sustains the people that's doing the work is what that was teaching. Now in our days, people not you can't provide someone electricity. You can't provide someone heat in their home. You can't provide someone gas with tomatoes. Someone has to pay to drive to you, or someone has to pay for internet. Someone has to, you to take care of someone to allow them to continue to serve is the whole principle of tithe. You know, tithe is not to give somebody a Bentley, or tithe is not to give somebody something above what they need to survive to serve Yah. Tithe is to take care of the person while they serve you. And it's not even saying that you're forced to. You should bless the one that's blessing you. Just as Melchizedek blessed Abraham, Abraham blessed Melchizedek. You see what I'm saying? Nobody
Yeah.
felt nobody felt that obligation to be like, you know what, you're a pastor, or you're an elder, or you're anything, so I'm gonna give you this. You have the responsibility to do what Yah says as far as providing for these things, as well as the widow. There should be some. What me and my wife do is, when we take a tenth of our increase and we put it to the side, we see who needs help. We first pay ministers as well. Like, we'll give some to the assembly, because the assembly money don't come to the elders.
Mhm.
Um, we don't. It's not that much to be taken from that. It goes to feasts and things like that. And people that request help, it goes to them. You know what I mean? There's people that request help to Assembly of Yahuwah, and the money goes to them as well. So what me and my wife does is, when we do increase, we take a tenth and we separate it into like a certain account. And then when we hear about people that need help, or people that's going through struggles and things like that, we'll bless them in what they need. And then also, if we run into ministers that's actually teaching the truth properly, we'll give it to them, as well as to the assembly. So um, it provides for the blessing of Yah to continue, for the burdens of people to be lifted up. Sometimes people get caught up. Oh, tithe is grain. Well, no, tithe is support. People was eating grain. Why did you give grain? Because they needed to eat. Why did you give them cattle? Because they needed to eat and work, because they used the cattle to plow and to do different things. You know, so that's the purpose of it.
Okay. I think I got it now. It
Yeah.
was, I don't know. I think I was kind of confused because I heard someone say, I think it was last Friday night or something. Someone said it was coming up to that third year or something. I'm like, what is
Mhm.
that? I thought we
Yeah.
pay tithes like you get paid on Fridays, you get your 10%, but I was concerned about that third year, and I
Yeah.
wanted to do what's right.
I think it's a good principle. I mean, I don't wait until the third year, because if I accumulate everything that I put to the side from my increase, it would equal the same thing if I waited to the third year. You know, that's just math. You know, if you put a
Mhm.
tenth every single time you got increase, on the third year, it would still be equal the same thing. So
Mhm.
when me and my wife put it to the side, you know, sometimes we don't wait for 3 years. Sometimes it's the next month somebody needs help, you know, and we give it to people that we know need help. I mean, we do investigate because we want to make sure that people are actually in need, you know.
Okay. I understand now, so I
Yeah.
know what to do. Thank
Praise
you.
God. Praise God. So I'm glad to hear people are honoring that same understanding of taking care of the widow and those who are in need. You know, so I would like to see how they do it too. I haven't heard anybody really keeping that principle. So praise God. Brother Ben, go ahead, brother.
Um, okay, so my question is about Ezekiel 36. Now, it's specifically about verse 5, but we'll need more context than that. And basically, I'm wondering if this is something that already happened or if this is happening right now.
Go ahead.
Ezekiel 36. And it says, therefore, thus saith Yahuwah Elohim, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the remnant or residue of the nations, and against all Edom, which have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their heart, with the spiteful minds to cast it out for a prey.
So it's specifically, if you go up to verse 1, it's talking to the mountains of Israel, so to the land, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But I guess my question is,
Uh-huh.
if you look at the interlinear, it says Edom or in other words Esau's line, if
Yeah.
this is correct.
That's
So
this word here. Yeah. Idumea. I
yeah.
don't know. Yeah, I don't know why it says Idumea here, but that's what the word Edom. Um, that's where the word Edom. That's the word Edom, basically.
So then it says they have appointed my land into their possession with all joy to cast it out for a prey. And so I guess what I'm asking is, um, we know that the people that live there now are not the original, like not the line of Jacob, but I guess what I'm asking is, cast it out for a prey. Does that mean like an end times deception, or like it's going to get attacked in the end times, or is this something that already happened? Because I don't see evidence of being able to say it was cast out for a prey in the past, but I might just be missing something simple. So
Yeah. So, like, casting out, because he's talking about the actual land. Casting out for a prey is kind of like another word of saying, like, they were to devour the land, like they were devouring the land. Ezekiel is actually teaching during a time that they're in captivity, right? You know that?
no, I didn't, because I haven't read a lot about Ezekiel. This verse just
Yeah.
caught my.
Ezekiel is actually, I believe he's actually in, look, verse chapter 1. I was among the captives by the river Kabar. The river Kabar is in Babylonia, is in Babylon. You see here, the word of Yahuwah came expressly unto Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans by the river Kabar, and the hand of Yahuwah was upon him. And then he talks about how the whirlwind came out of the north, talking about Babylon came to Jerusalem and basically did what Ezekiel 30. Where was that verse? Ezekiel 33.
36:5.
36. 36:5. Yeah. So Israel is already burned down. Like Israel is already burned down, and people from different nations are kind of gathering around it, taking little pieces of it, utilizing the land while they're gone. You know what I mean? So in a sense, this is kind of like, I don't think it's necessarily, give me 1 second, because I don't think it's not necessarily talking about
I might need to give you more context for it to make sense. The reason I'm asking is like so many believe that is the prophecy that the Father bring his people back into the land. So is it a pray for those people who have that false belief, and then something's going to happen to the land that people will think, oh my goodness, it's been destroyed, the Father doesn't exist, and then like, is it possible that that's what it means, or is that completely out of context, if that makes sense?
Well, let me see. Let me read a little bit about context first. Well, since we're at here, verse 5, let me start real quick from verse 1. Take her and lay her down. All right. It says, Son of man, prophesy unto the mountains of Israel, and say, ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of Yahuwah. Thus saith Yahuwah Elohim, because the enemy have said against you, even the ancient high places are ours in possession. You see, this they already said this to them. Therefore prophesy and say, thus saith Yahuwah Elohim, because they have made you desolate, swallowed you up on every side, that you might be a possession unto the residue of the nations. You are taken up in the lips of talkers, and are an infamy of the people. Therefore, you mountains of Israel, hear the word of Yahuwah Elohim. Thus saith Yahuwah Elohim to the mountains and to the hills, to the rivers and to the valleys, and to the desolate wastes, and to the cities that are forsaken, which became a prey. You see that in verse 4? Which became a prey. This description is the description of the land of Israel becoming a prey to the nations. So when the nations take possession and do whatever they want with Yah's land, it's referred to as the nations or the land becoming a prey and derision to the remnant of the nations that are surrounding Israel. When you read Nehemiah and Ezra, when they went to Israel to try to rebuild the wall, it was these nations that was surrounding these Edomites, actually. Matter of fact, there was one Edomite that one of the priests let sleep in the temple in the book of Nehemiah. And Nehemiah had to come and kick this guy out of the temple. He's like, how you going to let this guy sleep in the temple? And then he read the Torah showing that the Edomites not even supposed to enter into the temple. That's what it means by entering into the congregation, that they're not supposed to be inside the temple. But anyway, so when it says, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the nations and against all Edom, the Edomites that were surrounding Israel at that time, which have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of with all their heart, with the spiteful minds to cast it out for a prey. It says, prophesy therefore concerning the land of Israel, say unto the mountains and to the hills and the rivers and to the valleys, thus saith Yahuwah Elohim, behold, I have spoken in my jealousy and in my fury, because you have borne the shame of the nations. So he's speaking in disappointment to Israel, because Israel had borne shame in the eyes of the nations, and the nations was allowed to do that to the land. Therefore saith Yahuwah Elohim, I have lifted up my hand, surely the nations that are around you, they shall bear their shame. I like the question that you asked. Is this something that happened? In a small sense, because Israel, when they were in Babylon, they didn't go back until the kingdom of Persia was there. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you read Nehemiah and Ezra, they do in a sense bear the shame. They do get put in their place when they rebuild the temple, they rebuild the streets of Jerusalem, they rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Um, while the land of Edom, these nations of Edom was like hovering around the side of Israel. They even sent a letter back to the king of Persia, lying, saying that they're trying not to pay taxes. And the king of Persia stopped the building of the wall for a little while, and then he allowed them to do it again. So the nations was messing with Israel. Have you ever heard the story of the building of the wall? How they had to build it with a brick in one hand and a sword in the other hand?
No. Where's that
Oh,
at?
it's in the book of Nehemiah. When you look at Ezra and Nehemiah, that's what Ezekiel is prophesying about. But I believe that it doesn't just stick to that uh interpretation, because it happened again. You see what I'm saying? So Yah restored them to the coming of Messiah, but they were also, the land went back into that same state at this time. So I believe that it does apply. It's not like a time prophecy, because I think that there's a close proximity prophecy, and then there's a longer prophecy application. But it does apply to what's going on now, because it's the same situation. Yah's people is scattered, and the land is like a prey where the nations are doing whatever they want with the land. And then Yah is going to one day, um, it says Messiah is going to come down on Mount of Olives. And I believe when he comes down on Mount of Olives, that's when this interpretation reapplies of his hand moving on the nations and bringing them to shame. So I like that question, because it does apply to the restoration of Israel during the time of Artaxerxes, when he gave them everything that they needed to go back to Jerusalem and Israel and to rebuild and push the nations back outside. They came to Nehemiah and they asked him, "Hey, can we help you fix the temple? Can we help you fix Israel?" And they said, "No, we don't need nobody in the nations to help us do anything." So they had to keep them at bay with swords. They had to keep them at bay, being ready for war. So they wrote a letter to the king, telling on them, talking about, oh, they don't want to pay taxes. And then they had to stop the work for a little while until they cleared that up. So I would say Ezekiel 33 definitely applies to the time that they went back to Jerusalem in Ezra and Nehemiah, but the idea does reapply to what he promises to do again, in Zechariah and in Revelation and things like that.
I definitely need to go back and read those. So like when we started coming to all this and actually started reading the word for myself, I've read most of the New Testament. I've read all the Torah, and I'm in Joshua now, but like I'm just getting into all the meat of the history and all those books. So
Yeah.
that's definitely missing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would
But
say keep going. Keep going, because Judges, Kings, Chronicles will bring you up to the reason why Babylon came in and things like that.
right.
Ezra, remember, make sure Ezra and Nehemiah is in a funny spot. I'm not sure which version you're looking at. I actually wrote down the chronological order of the books.
Oh,
Mostly.
I have the Hallelujah scriptures. It's they reorder them chronologically.
Yeah. So when you're looking at Jeremiah, Lamentations, that's all before, right? But right before they go into now Jeremiah, Daniel, Ezekiel, they was reading Jeremiah. So Daniel, in the book of Daniel, they quote from Jeremiah. So Daniel, Ezekiel, Zechariah, Haggai, they're all in Babylon.
Yeah.
They're all in Babylon teaching, because they're teaching about the restoration of Israel, which Daniel prophesies about. So it's good to look at the history, but Ezra and Nehemiah, they break down the whole process of going back and what they had to do. and the nations, same thing that Ezekiel was talking about. You're gonna see the actual live story about the nations that was round about the mountains of Israel trying to kind of hover in, and then they had to kind of push them back out like, nah, you can't take this land. This is why y'all left. When you read the book of Jeremiah, you'll see that at the end of Jeremiah, y'all didn't allow all Israel to go into captivity. There was people left behind to stay on the land. Matter of fact, Jeremiah bought some land to stay on. Like Jeremiah stayed in Israel, in Jerusalem. So just for that purpose. So when Nehemiah and them came back, the nations was coming in, but they didn't fully take over all the land. So when Nehemiah came back, he came back and the wall wasn't built. And then you had some Edomites sleeping in the temple. They were like, what in the world is going on? So the history is very important because it shows us, one, how lenient people could be, how strict we must be with Yah's things, with things that belong to Yah. We have to be strict. And also the work of the service of his house. Haggai talks about it. These are books that people don't even talk about. You don't hear people quoting from Haggai or Nahum. You don't hear people quoting from those prophets, but there's a lot to be, said in those times about the restoration of Israel. Now, that was before Messiah came, but then they went back into desolation again, and the nations came back again, the same punishment. So that's what's going on now. This time, Yahusha is going to come, the Lion of Judah is going to come and actually solidify what he needs to do. Like the nation that's going to go into this, that's going to be with him in the New Jerusalem, is going to be all righteous people. It's not going to be a mixture of righteous people and a mixture of wicked people. It's not going to be a mixture of rebellious people and a mixture of honest people. Yah is only allowing the righteous. So it's going to be a different restoration, a different type of restoration.
Is that what it means when it says everyone will know him?
Yes. That nobody's going to teach another person to know Yah. That's the only thing that you're not going to teach someone, to know him, because everybody shall know him. That's what the new covenant is about. The new covenant is not about nobody teaching, nobody learning. It's about nobody having to tell somebody else that they have to know who Yah is, because everybody will know who he is. Well, everybody who's with him will know him. See, back when they left Egypt, they didn't all know him. Then when they left Babylon, they didn't all know him. And then when Messiah come, they definitely didn't all know him. But he said, this time, it's you have to know me or not. That's it.
That's actually, whenever I first came to all this and was like trying to figure it all out, what I realized was they bounce you around so much when you read the scriptures in a regular church that they intentionally skip so many things that are important, and you have no context and no idea what's going on. And so the first thing I did was look for a tool that let me keep track of what I had read, so that I actually knew, okay, I've never read this chapter because I didn't mark it off, if that makes sense. That might be silly, but that's
no. Absolutely. Whatever allows you to put these things together, because that's what's necessary. It was different levels with me as well. Especially they put me on the New Testament, and I'm reading the New Testament like 4 or 5 times, in a couple years, and then
without text, though, the New Testament doesn't make sense, and you read it wrong without the context of the Old Testament.
You're subject to the indoctrination, because the indoctrination is based off of the New Testament. It's based off of their perspective of the New Testament. But then I read the Old Testament, and praise Yah, when I read the Old Testament, even though they gave me the perspective of the New Testament, it could not continue to apply to what they told me. It could not make sense unless I applied it back to the Old Testament and took it away from the perspective that the church gave me. So it was it was a eye opener to read the Old Testament. And then I think I was like, I was still in the church and I was telling people, yo, Old Testament is more important than the New Testament, you know. And I'm in the church, everything that I learned, and I'm just in the church because I didn't grow up in it. So I don't have no aunts, no uncles in there. Everybody else was related, all my friends and them, they were related to other people but I was by myself. So when I came in and I opened my mouth, like nobody was telling me, keep quiet, boy. You know, because if they did, I was like, nah, you keep quiet, man. You don't know what you're talking about. They couldn't really control me and my and the people that I studied with, because we came right out of the street into the church. And then, so
It's a perfect illustration of, how do I say this? It just, I'll say it by my realization, because I think that's more so. Like, I realized that I didn't know the Heavenly Father because I didn't know what I knew what the church taught me. I didn't know. I had read the Old Testament scripture somewhat here and there, bouncing around, but I never let it apply to myself. And the
right,
moment I read it from the perspective of, hey, this is all for me. Like, if it doesn't apply to me, what's the point? And then when you read
yeah,
it from that, all of a sudden you realize, I don't know him. I don't know his feasts. I don't know his commandments. What have I been doing? And that's kind of what wakes you up. But
right.
praise Yah for that.
Praise God, absolutely. And then after you read the Old Testament and then you go back to the New Testament, it's like now you're on a whole new journey. And you're like, oh, what in the world? Oh, this is what Yahushua was saying. This is what he told us.
You can't possibly believe what the church told you if you understand what's in the Old Testament. And
Right.
then
I think you muted yourself.
I said you can't unsee what you've just learned. Like, you can't read the Old Testament and then go back to what the church teaches, and there's
Right.
absolutely no way that you can line up the Father's character in the Old Testament to then say, it's kind of like when you teach a kid not to run across the street without looking so they don't get hit by a car. Okay, you don't then let them become an adult and say, well, now you can run in front of a car if you want to. Like,
Right.
Father's not like that. So
Yeah, they can still gonna be like, what's going on? So praise Yah. Sister Alexandria.
Yes, I just wanted to say I'm just so excited about what y'all are talking about, and Sister Jamie, I just love what you say and how you put things together. Coming into the walk and not just trying to put together what the church is saying, but even going to talking to the people that you thought know Torah, and then you understand that what Torah means to them is not what Torah is. And then you come into the understanding about things like the Talmud. And I'm like, what is that? And understanding, that that's what's written by men. And like I'm trying to talk to people about how I'm trying to celebrate and observe Hanukkah, and my Hanukkah is not their Hanukkah. And so it is such a confusing state I feel I'm in when trying to just to be, what really just makes me feel safe is just knowing that the Father knows that I'm reading the Word. He knows that I am in truth with him. I'm in truth with Him. But man, when you talk to people and you're like, oh, the 8 days and the oil, oh, that came from the Talmud. And it has nothing to do with dedication. It has to do with the lights. And I am just blown away. And I just look at people and I'm like, all of this confusion, it just drives me crazy.
Mhm.
It really does. But thank goodness for the Word. All I have to do is go back to the Word. I just read the Word. I'm reading Maccabees, and oh my goodness, the journey there. Some of it it's heartbreaking, But
Yeah.
I understand, and there's the rededication. My dedication is there. So I just wanted to share that. I so appreciate that we can talk about, yes, all the confusion and trying to understand and bring it together, that we all are going through this. So,
Hmm.
yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why sometimes it's not about telling people all the things that you know. It's about telling people the things that they need to know, because you can't go into a confusing situation and tell them all the truth that you have. It's just going to bring more confusion for them, so it's necessary to serve. This is why Yah calls giving of the word, he calls it the work, um, it definitely is called work because it's not just about pouring out or just you know vomiting stuff to people. It's about being strategic, strategizing, being wise, knowing what to say, saying it at the right time, saying it the right way, breaking it down a certain way so it could be understood, being able to contend and endure during certain types of conversations. It's not, you know, it's not a it's not for the, what do they call it? It's not for the faint at heart. It's for those who, you have to be strong. You have to be uh you have to have understanding. That's why it's a blessing that we come together, we become equipped, and then we go out and we approach the world catering and serving them, trying to kind of chisel all of the trash that they built up around their minds. The world, not only the world, but also these religious organizations, and you got all the things on YouTube and all the things on TV, and we have to chisel away at those things without breaking their whole their whole mind apart. So but praise Yah, he equips us to do that. He allows us to learn, and then we have to express it. So it definitely is called the work. That's why he says, if you look out in the harvest, that the harvest is ripe, but the laborers are few. Pray for that Yah will send more laborers. So this is not, this is a work. This is definitely work, because we all need each other's minds to bounce ideas off of each other's, even to bounce questions off of each other. You guys don't even know how much more insight I gain just from the questions that's being asked, even at such a fast pace. The questions is allowing my mind to do what I want to do on a normal basis. I want to share everything, but I could go to somebody and I could go blank because I'm like, what in the world am I going to start with? So you ask a question. Now I'm like, okay, yeah, I could give you all of this. What else you got? Oh, I'll give you all. And then you ask me a question, and then I got to be strategic. So now I got to think more about what else does Yah say? What else does Yah say about the topic? Even the verse that, I haven't read the book of Ezekiel in such a long time. So even the verse that Sister Jamie brought out in Ezekiel 36, it was just like, okay, let me go back to verse 1 to see what these things mean. And then it's just refreshing myself in it. It just gives me that, it not only refreshes my mind, it refreshes me. Like I feel excited about it when I'm refreshed. So and I keep on telling myself I gotta go back and read Ezekiel again. And I'm just now getting back to Isaiah, but
But Brother
yeah.
Jadiel, I just wanted to tell you really quickly, when you said, I saw your one of your sessions that you taped, and you went to a particular barbecue, the kosher barbecue.
Yeah.
I work for one of those companies, and I almost went to that barbecue.
Oh
You and
yeah.
I would have had a
Yeah.
conversation, but I would love to have a follow-up conversation with you. So now that you know my background, so that's the conversation that I have.
Okay.
The individuals that I believed and thought knew Torah, and before I became, on this walk, the chosen. And so this I can't express how free I am in
Mm.
understanding so much more. But now I feel like everybody needs to be free.
Mm.
And hearing what you said and how, yes, you cannot say the word, you can't, it is yes, an abomination. It is yes. There's so much. So that's what I work around. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to share that with you, and so let you know that that is also a part of my walk and what I'm dealing with as well. So thank you.
Oh, praise God. I think my wife is gonna be some because she has these encouragement bracelets that she makes, and we have a lot of yahuah merchandise. So we actually may be taking a week off, and then, well, not a week off ministry, just a week off of regular life. I don't like taking off ministry. That's when you don't see me. It's not a good feeling. I may need rest, but
Yeah.
I don't have a mind. There's no vacation with. When we go on vacation, I set up my laptop and get it ready for you guys. But well, you may see us and my wife has some stuff in Atlanta to go and market her stuff. So we may be in Atlanta a little bit more in the next couple months doing certain vending events. Um, I believe is she's dealing with like Christian events and Hebrew events and different type of religious events. So we'll be there.
Amazing. All right. I will look for the family. That would be beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Got Brother Brad. Go ahead, Brother Brad.
Yeah, shalom, shalom. Question. Well, two actually. One meaning being that list you were talking about, the chronological list that you said you wrote out.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing that?
Um, let me see.
And to Sister Jamie's point, is it very close to Hallelujah Scriptures the way they have their books laid out?
I don't know. I didn't compare it yet.
Oh, okay.
Um,
That's the claim that they make, Brother Brad, is that they ordered them chronologically, but I don't know enough to test them yet, so I would ask Brother Jadiel to compare if that makes sense.
Very fair. Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Thank you.
yeah. Let me see. I wrote it down. I'm gonna be right back to you. I'm gonna look for it right now. Let me let Sister Anita go. Go ahead, Sister Anita. Yeah.
No,
I'm gonna come right back.
brother Javier, I don't have a question. I was just thinking, I was listening to you say you and your wife may be in Atlanta sometime soon. And
Yeah.
I was just wanting to know when, because I live like 30 minutes away. So I would love to see you guys there.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. We're thinking about doing something like around the 21st. I think it's a Thursday. I think there's an event there that my wife was gonna take some opportunity to bring some yahuah merchandise there, and some encouragement scriptures she has on her bracelets that she makes. So the 21st, we're thinking about 21st, but that's gonna be a rough travel for me. So
Yes.
we're trying to see because we're gonna be in Florida, coming back from Florida on that day. And so we'll definitely let you know. Are you on the women's polo?
Uh, no, no, I'm not.
Okay. But you have my email, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So email me next week, and then I'm work things out with my wife, see if we're gonna be there, and then I'll let you know where we are.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, praise God. Um, all right, Brad. Yeah. Kai, you want milk or coconut water? Let's see if we have milk. I don't know if we have milk. I'm in the coconut water. Okay. Where's Kai? All right. So this is what I have. Of course, the Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Well, Deuteronomy is basically Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers redone. Then we have Joshua, and we have Judges. Now, I wrote this down. I'm still tweaking it. I have Judges, and then I have Ruth. I'm not even sure the way that it's normally chronologize. I'm just writing down what I put together when I read through it. So after Judges is Ruth, because Ruth was during a time when before there was any kings. So Ruth supposed to be after Judges. Is Ruth after Judges? I don't even know where.
We would all fail this test.
Yeah, Ruth is after Judges.
Is it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. How these scriptures does it then and it different? But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So then I have First or Second Samuel, and then I have the Book of Psalms. Then I have First Kings and First Chronicles, and then I have Proverbs, Songs of Solomon, and Ecclesiastes. Then I have Second Kings, Second Chronicles, and then I have Amos, Micah, and Isaiah. Then I have Jeremiah and Lamentations, and then I have Daniel, Ezekiel, Hosea.
Hold on, brother. Jeremiah, what?
I have Jeremiah and Lamentations.
Okay.
And then I have after Lamentations, then I have Daniel, Ezekiel. Now they overlap. Some of them overlap. So sometimes people put it either Ezekiel, Daniel, Ezekiel, but Daniel, then Ezekiel. I have Hosea, then I have Yoel, and then I have Obed after Yoel.
All right.
Yeah, because Amos was before they went into Babylonian captivity. So Yoel is after they went into Babylonian captivity. So it's Yoel, then Obed, then is Jonah and Nahum. And let me see. So I think I put Jonah. I think Jonah may have been in the wrong place for me because I think Jonah was during the time of the Assyrian Empire, which would be during the time of Isaiah. So let me look at this. Yeah. Give me 1 second. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, okay. So where am I? Nahum. Then I have Habakkuk, Zephaniah, and then I have Malachi. After Malachi, I have Esther. Because after the Babylonian Empire, then you have the Persian Empire, and this is where Esther, Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, and Zechariah come into play. They come in during Babylonian captivity, but not Babylonian captivity under the rulership of Babylon, but Babylonian captivity under the rulership of Persia.
So Esther and what was that for Esther?
Esther, then Ezra, then Nehemiah, Haggai, and then I have Zechariah. And I'm not sure if I'm missing anything. Job, I believe Job was somewhere when I was doing research of when they were talking about in Job, I believe Job was during the time, like around the time of I believe it was around the time of Abraham. You know, many people have a different history of Job. So I believe Job was, it's like kind of
In
during
between Genesis
during the time of Genesis. Yeah.
and Exodus, between those two.
Yeah. Before Exodus, before Moses, definitely, but
Right.
during the time of the patriarchs.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I have. I'm not sure if Hallelujah scriptures match that. They probably have a good reason if it doesn't, you know. So I would double check why they, you know.
But it didn't. What it says here for the order of the books? It says the order of the books in the first covenant follow the traditional Hebraic Tanakh, Torah, Nebiim, and Ketuvim. So basically, the Torah, the prophets, and the letters. So they put the prophets close to the order you said, and then they put the letters separate. So like Psalms and Proverbs are by
Oh,
themselves.
okay.
So there are, but they're not. And then
So
some
that's
of the
like, yeah, that's like Jewish. The Jewish. I put the Psalms next to First and Second Samuel because that was right after David. So after David's kingship, you have the Psalms to reflect the kingship. So you can keep it. Sometimes when you keep it together, then you could see what David is talking about. You know, if you read Psalms right after you read about David, then you'll see what he's talking about right after. You know, if sometimes if you push Psalms so far away, by the time you read it, you won't really, if you're reading so many other books, you won't really remember all the details that just went into the that was in his actual life. But when you read Psalms right after you read his life, you can put certain Psalms in certain chapters in Samuel, especially Second Samuel, First Samuel and Second Samuel.
yeah,
So
no,
it's
I like what you said better.
huh?
The order that you said makes a lot of sense. I understand why they did it that way, but
Yeah, I understand. The Tanakh, which is, you know, I think I mentioned this last week. The phrase Tanakh comes from the Talmud. Um, you know, that separation and that order, you know, Torah, prophets, and writings, that comes from that's the Tanakh. That comes from the Talmudic people. Um, but chronologically, it's like the people are there. Like you'll see the people. They'll tell you what king was reigning. They'll tell you what empire was ruling. You know, so it when I was reading it, I didn't even get a chance to read it this way yet. I just read through the Old Testament once again, and then I started to remember where everything was. So when I remember where everything was, I was just like, let me just put it in an order, and then the next time I go around, I'm gonna read it through this way, so that way I can see, you know, praise Yah, see what else Yah reveals, because he always reveals something new. So
I
yeah.
have one last question, brother.
Yeah.
Um, did you do a study on the feast of dedication?
I did do a study. I did a Facebook Live last week. So there's a video on Facebook, kind of like a shortened one. But I did a longer one on YouTube a couple years ago.
Okay.
And I think that one is pretty adequate as well. It's
Is it under your playlist on
if you go,
4ALC?
yeah, if you go to the playlist and go to the Feast of Yah, you'll probably see Hanukkah. Let me know if you see it. If
Oh,
not,
it's under Hanukkah? Okay.
yeah. Or what is Hanukkah exactly? I think that's the title.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't have Facebook, bro, so I'm not able to watch that stuff on
Oh,
Facebook.
that's you. That's okay. So YouTube, yeah. So YouTube, you should see
Oh,
the
there it is. It's
yeah.
first one.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So I start with the word Hanukkah, breaking it down where it's located in the scripture, because when people hear Hanukkah, they automatically think Maccabees, but that's not. It has nothing to do with Maccabees. It's something to do with what they did. They did something, and that thing was called Hanukkah. You see what I'm saying? So,
Gotcha.
the Maccabees did Hanukkah, and then they made it a certain way. They celebrated it a certain way for a reason. So I pointed out all of the stuff in Maccabees I pointed out all the Hanukkahs from Genesis all the way to Maccabees. Because they
Okay.
definitely did Hanukkah. They definitely celebrated Hanukkah. Even Solomon celebrated Hanukkah for 8 days at the same time, but he celebrated Hanukkah on the Feast of Tabernacles,
Okay.
or I would say observe Hanukkah, because it is a dedication. It's a specific type of dedication that was done in the temple, on the altar, on the sacrifices. So
Okay. All right. And what about the New Testament? Did you order that? Is that the same as it is today on the New Testament?
I didn't order it. I did not order that. I'm not sure if you really can because of the book of Acts. And I think the way that it is kind of good because after the book of Acts, every single letter is based off of an experience in the book of Acts. So you should be able to correlate every letter that Paul writes with what he did in the book of Acts. So if you shouldn't read his letters until you go through the book of Acts to see what he went through. Then you can go to his letters and then you'll see what he's responding to, what he's writing about. It'll be easier that way. Some things you won't know until you see the context, and some things you'll see clearly in the book of Acts, why he's writing these things.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah. And the book of John, I think the book of John is the last book that was written in the New Testament. So if you want to do something in chronological order, the book of John would probably be after Revelation.
Okay.
You would read John after Revelation because he wrote it that way. I think
Okay.
he wrote first, second, and third John, and then he wrote Revelation, and then he wrote John, the book of John, I believe.
So John is like as in the four Gospels, like Matthew, Mark, Luke, John.
Yeah.
Oh, that one.
John,
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry, maybe it's through the question, but I was just trying to get that right.
All right. Brother Ben, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, man. So Jamie and I were talking last week. We in our house we don't celebrate Hanukkah yet. We're just making sure that we don't want to celebrate something until we fully understand it and or we're doing it. We think that that's the way that Yah wants us to do it. So we're being, a little pretty careful about Hanukkah. We're trying to figure out like when it comes to the festivals that Yahuwah said, yes, definitely do those. And the ones such as Hanukkah and Purim, how do you make a distinction between doing it yearly and observing it? And it's just a little confusing that in people, it doesn't say to even celebrate it yearly, but because it was a battle and because what was established in the rededication, it seems like people celebrate it yearly, but there was, in my opinion, there's lots of other battles that could be celebrated yearly, I guess. I don't know. I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say. It's just I don't understand how Hanukkah, why it's celebrated yearly, because it's it's not even, I haven't seen anything that says that it should be celebrated yearly. So I was just maybe looking for some clarity on that. And there might be a second small part to this question as well.
And kind of like when you're coming out of traditions of men, you kind of get touchy about traditions of men, I think. So I guess the question is, who made the decision to do it yearly, or is that just a personal decision because the Father said this is how you purify yourself? I guess that's kind of.
Yeah. Well, I think that will go into first the understanding the meaning. Understanding the meaning of Hanukkah. Stop. The meaning of Hanukkah is kind of based off of other experiences. So when you read the book of Maccabees, you'll find out that the reason why they celebrate Feast of Hanukkah for 8 days is because Nehemiah actually did a Hanukkah for 8 days. And Maccabees tells you the date that they celebrated it So it's not something that Yah said, hey guys, I want you to keep Hanukkah or observe Hanukkah. It was established because it was something that Yah did for the children of Israel as a whole historically. It's kind of like, you know, I know sometimes we observe certain milestones in our lives when we came in contact with Yah or, you know, different things, marriage anniversaries and how those things become sentimental because of who I'm dealing with, right? Or what happened, things like that. That was along the lines of what Hanukkah was about, remembering what just happened, you know. But the dedication was specifically in reference into the temple. And that was a reflection of what happened during the time. If you read Maccabees, it tells you that they were reflecting on the time of Nehemiah, on the time of Solomon, and on the time of Moses. So it wasn't something that they just came up with out of nowhere. It was something that was done during the time of Moses, during the time of Solomon, and during the time of Nehemiah. So they decided to do it that way as a remembrance of what, not only of what happened with the battle, but also of the ability. So here's what happened. And this is probably one of the biggest issues about it. Not the Feast of Lights, because it's not a Feast of Lights, but
Yeah.
of the Battle of the Maccabees. And everybody keeps emphasizing on the Battle of the Maccabees. It wasn't necessarily based off of the Battle of the Maccabees, but of the fact that Yah gave them deliverance over the huge Greek army with a small army, and that they didn't beat the Greeks. They were diverted away from Jerusalem and never came back. You know, there was another nation that came and then they left and they never came back to Jerusalem. And so when they did that, they remembered that they slaughtered a pig on the altar of sacrifice. So they wanted to go back to worshiping Yah, because the children of Israel was just, half of them was just taking bribes from the Greeks, started to go worship Greek gods and all of that stuff. So after they battled and all of that stuff, they wanted to go back and rededicate themselves to worship the one true Yah at the temple. But then they remembered that somebody that Antiochus killed the pig on the altar. So they broke down that whole altar and then they rebuilt a brand new altar so they can serve Yah at the temple. And then they dedicated it by offering sacrifices to Yah. So the dedication was the worship service at the temple. That's what the dedication is. So it was one day, the 9th month of Yah's calendar, the 25th day of the 9th month. But they said they wanted to do it for 8 days to represent the way that Nehemiah did it and the way that Solomon did it. So that's why they did it. So that's why when you see one of the things that's very interesting historically is that they didn't only sacrifice a pig on the altar, but they also burned down Solomon's porch. So they rebuilt Solomon's porch and rebuilt the altar. So one of the interesting things is that during the Feast of Dedication in John chapter 10, you have Messiah walking on Solomon's porch. So it's just a crazy correlation that during the Feast of Dedication, he's literally going to the temple and he's preaching on Solomon's porch. And in the Maccabees, they emphasized on how they burnt down Solomon's porch. Now, Solomon's porch was important because in Kings, he built it so that way he can execute judgment to the people from that porch. So he can deliver judgment, like what they should do. And it's just crazy how you have Messiah walking on Solomon's porch, telling the people what they should do on the Feast of Dedication in John chapter 10. So it's kind of like Yah didn't say it, but I don't believe in coincidences that Messiah will be walking to the temple during the Feast of Dedication, and then he's on Solomon's porch preaching, which he should. He's the son of David. He should be preaching on Solomon's porch, telling the people what they should do, on the Feast of Dedication. So it's just to me is more like it doesn't negate the fact that it's a memorial of what Messiah did, because every time Feast of Dedication come around, you have to remember John chapter 10. You have to remember that Messiah did something on the Feast of Dedication as well. So, but at the end of the day, it's not a Sabbath. It's not a restriction, but anything that you dedicate to Yah can bless. He doesn't say he can bless. He says that he will bless. If you're doing it in righteousness, he will bless whatever you dedicate to him. Matter of fact, he says if you dedicate something to him, you can't take it back. It's his. So if you dedicate that time to him, personally, he will bless it. But if you don't, it's not a Sabbath. So it's kind of along those lines. It's not a Sabbath to be mandated, but it is a blessing that you can receive if you decide to acknowledge it. Now, it doesn't mean to take all 8 days off. It doesn't mean not to. But if you look at the 8 days, you at least have a whole weekend, right? You at least have a Friday, Saturday, Sunday that you can dedicate to Yah, to study or read or acknowledge the dedication. But it's not something that's it's not like the other feasts.
That was happening historically that could explain him being there, or for a dedication to purify something, or was he doing it annually, or is there any way to even know that?
Yeah, because it doesn't say. We know that there was annual feasts, but it doesn't say he was keeping Pentecost. It doesn't say he was keeping Day of Atonement, right? But we know that it happens every year. And we know that he kept the feast perfectly. I mean, he didn't have to offer any sacrifices for any sins because he didn't commit any sins. So we know that he observed Passover. We know that he observed tabernacles. We know that he observed but in John chapter 10, it literally says, let me see if I can find it.
Oh, I might have said that wrong. I mean, was there some specific that they may have been dedicating
when
in John?
Oh yeah, they were following the tradition of what was in Maccabees.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was asking.
Yeah,
I didn't know if something happened historically during that time that they could have been dedicating, like purifying something, or if it was a remembrance of Maccabees.
yeah. It was definitely because there was never a feast, even though there was a dedication or Hanukkah that had happened historically in the scripture from Moses, Solomon, Hezekiah, Josiah. Even though there was a dedication, there was never a feast of dedication until Maccabees. So John chapter 10 says specifically it was the feast of dedication, which is Hanukkah. So there was never a feast of dedication until like an established feast of dedication until Maccabees. So John chapter 10 definitely was talking about Maccabees.
Okay,
or the feast of dedication from Maccabees.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're just it's hard when it doesn't say to do it. We just don't want to add or take away, in scripture. And we see a lot of other people, your family celebrates, and we're just trying to like figure out
It's more like what Yahushua was doing. Forget about everybody else. That's the only reason why I even thought about it was because I read John 10. And you won't find Feast of Dedication nowhere else except for in the book of Maccabees. So you wouldn't find it anywhere else. Historically, biblically, you won't find a feast called the Feast of Dedication except for the one that was established in the book of Maccabees. So
right, and that's the point. Actually, the point you just brought up. That's the point that I was talking to Jamie about. The Messiah's I think Messiah did it, and I'm not saying that I'm 100% all in yet or anything, but like that. But yeah, trying to put some pieces together. So
Yeah, we were looking at Greek because so many times the word feast is a separate word from like if it would say like the Feast of Weeks or whatever it was, and don't use that as an example because I don't have the confirmation. But we looked up the word feast and it was almost always a separate word. And we just don't want to blindly follow anyone into doing anything. So that's why we elaborating.
Right. When Yah categorizes feasts and when he says the feasts of Yah, he's talking about the ones in Leviticus 23, you know.
Yeah.
So in John chapter 10, when it says the feast of tabernacle, the feast of dedication, there's only one feast of dedication, which didn't even happen that long from that point because it happened during the Greek Empire, and then they were now in the Roman Empire. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So it wasn't
sure.
that long ago to be like forgotten or ignored or something like that. But it's not saying that they kept it like a Shabbat. It says that there was an acknowledgement. One, it's John. John is the one writing it. He's telling you what's going on. John is saying today is the Feast of Tabernacles and Messiah. Now remember, John wrote this after Messiah died and rose. So he's not like Luke writing it down like he's being in he has like I believe he was receiving as well as Mark and Matthew and like an inspired memory, like he was inspired to remember all the way back because he was mad old. He was real old when he was writing the book of John. He was on the island of Patmos by himself. So after he saw Revelation, I believe that he wrote John being inspired by Yah to remember the things that Messiah did and all the narration that's in the book of John, I believe is inspired by Yah to say what was going on, you know. And so when you get to John 10 and it says, and now it was the feast of dedication, he's revealing what Messiah was doing, when he was doing it, what was going on at the time. And so the fact that it could have just said Messiah went to the temple and walked on Solomon's porch and started preaching. It could have just said that. But it mentioned it. And I believe it mentioned it for us to acknowledge at least something about it. Because Yah has always been, and remember, this is not me telling you guys to do it. I'm just telling you.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So when you look throughout history, when Yah gave us the temple, it had a representation of something that it had to mean to us. It was a reality that we were supposed to gain from the symbol of the tabernacle or the altar and the incense and the candlesticks. So the fact that they are rededicating their life and they talked about the altar of sacrifice, and you talk about us rededicating our life and it talks about being a living sacrifice and all of those things, there's definitely a symbolic correlation with people that need to rededicate themselves. It's funny that the sacrificial altar is what was defiled, and then how everything that we do is referred to as a sacrifice of our lips, living sacrifice of our words, sacrifice of praise. Everything that we do is referred to as a sacrifice. But guess what? If it's unclean, if we're defiled trying to give offerings, we need to rededicate. We need to repent and rededicate ourselves. It's everything that about the temple had a symbolic meaning. So I take it as a symbolic meaning or remembering the reality of that symbol,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but
okay.
as far as hey guys, let's remember the Maccabees and just everything that Yah does is more than just remembering something that happened. It's more about what is Yah trying to tell me about this thing? Why did he mention it? What is he trying to say to me? And that's the case. So,
Okay.
all right, brother Ariel.
Shalom, Brother Jadiel.
Shalom.
Shalom, family. I had a question. You recall the teaching? I've had some time to ponder this. You recall the teaching you done? I think it was like Second Coming, and you did it, I don't know, a month or maybe 2 months ago. I just want to kind of revisit that. If
Yep.
you can go to Revelation chapter 20 and trying to just place this. Because recall in the teaching, if I'm remembering correctly, because I was like, man, I can see this clearly. Remember, you had talked about Yahushua returning in the Father's glory, and and many have this idea that it's going to be mortal and immortal, but that teaching brought out something very peculiar in that when Yahushua returns in the Father's glory, there's not going to be no mortal, right?
Right.
Those who make the first resurrection, that's it. Then, if you look at Kazayon of Revelation 20 and verse 7, Brother Jadel,
Yep.
or it says, when 1,000 years come to an end, Hasatan will be let out of his prison. Now, if that's the case, where does this Gog and Magog coming against Israel? A lot of times my previous understanding was that was after, right?
Yep.
Sometime after the 1,000 year reign.
Mhm.
However, with this Yahushua returning in glory to the Father and all evil is wiped out, right? So I'm like, this has to happen prior to his return. I'm just trying to figure out where this particular part fits. Then the thought come, and this is kind of two parts. Then the thought, and help me just kind of ground myself with this. Then the thought come, the second resurrection. But I guess the purpose of that is, I was like, what's the purpose of the second resurrection? But I guess, yeah. So that's the thoughts that with this, previous understanding. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, what second resurrection? What's the purpose of that? If even that's the case, then I don't see how it's possible. But then there's Gog and Magog coming against Israel. So I was just trying to, I
Yeah.
had time, mull it over in my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like,
That's a good. No, these are good questions. It's gotta clarify. So the Revelation 20 right here. So verse 2, it talks about Satan is bound for 1,000 years, right? He's not going to do nothing for 1,000 years, right? Yah's people is going to reign for 1,000 years. We're talking about the same time. So even though it's different verses, it's not happening one after the other. It's all happening at the same time. Now look at the dead is raised from when Messiah comes. The dead is raised, right?
mm-hmm,
And we saw that nobody can dwell in the glory of Yah. It says all eyes shall see him, and that the only people that's going to be able to stand when he comes are the righteous. That's what Isaiah 33 says. So we could go back to that verse too. We'll see that. But it says that the rest of the dead does not live until the 1,000 years was finished. So again, who's the rest of the dead? Because when Messiah comes, the dead in Christ will rise and the living will be taken. Everybody that's righteous will be gathered together from the four corners and taken when Messiah comes.
mm-hmm.
Right? That's the first resurrection. So when Messiah comes, that's going to begin the 1,000 years. Yah's people will reign with Messiah for 1,000 years. Satan is going to be bound for 1,000 years. And the rest of the dead that's not in this resurrection won't be alive until the 1,000 years is over. Now, those who are not in the first resurrection, if you are in the first resurrection, it says that the second death doesn't have any power, verse 6. But they shall be priests unto Elohim and Messiah. And it says, and they shall reign with him for 1,000 years. This is all happening for the righteous during that 1,000 years. There's nothing happening for no wicked person for those 1,000 years. It's all the righteous for the 1,000 years. The rest of the dead, verse 5, did not live until after the 1,000 years is finished. Now, you have to assume if the rest of the dead does not live until the 1,000 years is finished, when the 1,000 years are finished, then the rest of the dead will also raise. Right? So when the 1,000 years are finished, the rest of the dead will raise, but also when the 1,000 years are finished, Satan will be loose. So the rest of the dead that is raised after the 1,000 years is going to, look right here, be at the whim of Satan being loosed at the end of the 1,000 years. So what is he going to do? He's going to go and he's going to deceive all the nations, not to sin, but to go and fight against the city. We're already reigning. So the deception, now remember, it uses the word deception, meaning that this is a trick. This is a deception. This is a trick. He's going to trick the nations. It's not saying that Satan is going to lead the army. No, Satan knowing nothing could happen. Satan knows nothing could happen. But what happens? The rest of the dead is resurrected. The rest of the dead is wicked. He is going to deceive them to make them think that they can go to battle with Yah and his son and his people in a glorified reigning state. So what do? They go up, they go up from all the corners of the earth. All of these people is like filling up the whole earth. And they're surrounding the camp and the holy ones, and they're surrounding the city. And when they do that, they try to take it because they're deceived. We don't go and fight them. We don't do anything. Fire comes down from Yah out of heaven, and he devours them. That's when the devil is figuratively thrown into the cast of the lake of fire. And then it goes into this figurative statement here. The great white throne judgment is that time where they come and try to take over the city. The great white throne judgment is this. All of the dead rose at the end of the 1,000 years. And it's not talking about the righteous, because remember, the righteous already partook in the first resurrection. Remember that. Those who are in the first resurrection. So all of the dead rose, right? All of the sea, and they all got judged according to their works. And it says that the death and hell, which are not real things, got thrown into a lake of fire, which is not a real thing. This is the second death. So what's happening is the rest of the dead are rising, and they are receiving their judgment after Satan makes them think that they can take over the city. So it's not before, because nothing happens before that besides judgment. The wrath of the Lamb comes, and they run, they die. Isaiah, let me go to that verse in Isaiah. Isaiah says that they cannot
Could I interject just for 10 seconds? Does that mean that there's a judgment for the living and then a judgment for the dead wicked? Is that what you're saying? Like there's a two, like it's all kind of the same judgment, but it's two different judgments, two different events.
the judgment for the no, it's happening at the same time. See, the execution of it, absolutely.
But that's not the same as the judgment. That's just
righteous. There's a judgment,
yeah.
The judgment on the righteous, and then the
Yeah.
judgment on the wicked. Yeah.
Okay.
So the judgment on the righteous is the first resurrection. Yeah. That's why he says judgment starts in the house of Yah. He starts with his people. He's looking for his people. Now, the house of Yah is not just Israel, it's his people in the four corners that worship him in spirit and in truth. He's judging his people first. After he judges his people, he seals his people. Revelation 7, on their foreheads. So before destruction comes, he seals his people. Then there's a multitude that comes out of that. After that, there's a resurrection of the dead and the living at the same time. Of 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. He's going to descend out of the sky. He's going to gather his people from the four corners of the earth. He's going to save those who are alive, those who are dead. They're going to be gathered together. They're going to meet Yah in the air, the dead and those who are alive. That's every single righteous person. Every righteous person that was dead, every righteous person that was alive will be gathered together, meet Yahusha in the air. Now, other scriptures don't go into righteous situation. Other scriptures tells you what happened to the wicked when Yahushua comes. So this is what you collect, right? Yahushua is, and you have to recognize that these things are happening at the same time, just like what we read in Revelation 20. Every time you see 1,000 years, you have to say, this is all happening at the very same time. So if the rest of the dead didn't live until after the said 1,000 years are done, that means that after the 1,000 years are done, the rest of the dead is going to resurrect. And when the rest of the dead resurrect, they're going to fill the whole earth, according to Revelation 20. So this is what Messiah was saying. There's a resurrection of the righteous. There's a resurrection of condemnation. There's two resurrections. Daniel chapter 12, there's a resurrection unto everlasting life, and there's a resurrection unto everlasting content. You see, so there's a constant reflection of two resurrections. The only problem, which is not really a problem, but the only thing is Revelation calls it a second death. It doesn't say resurrection. It says a second death, but it shows you that it's a resurrection. It shows you that they're being resurrected. You know, so we're supposed to connect the dots. So the first thing is, if we focus on what's going to happen to the righteous when Messiah comes, then we say, what's going to happen to the wicked when Messiah comes? Then you'll see everybody. That's everybody. Yah's not going to resurrect no wicked people at his coming. He's going to destroy wicked people. But he's going to resurrect all the wicked together to destroy them in the lake, in what he calls a lake of fire. But we saw that is fire coming down from Elohim. So the fire coming down from Elohim is referred to as a lake of fire. It's not a real lake. It's not a real lake somewhere burning, because they don't get destroyed by a lake. They get destroyed by fire that comes from Elohim, from the sky. And when that fire comes down, they're destroyed. And then the very next chapter talks about the city, and it goes into a new heaven and a new earth, because the whole earth is consumed with the wicked. The city is protected. We're in the city protected. Let's just say, if you want to picture it, you're like in the middle of a fire. I don't want to say a fireball, because then you're going to think I think the world is around. But we're in the middle. We're in the middle of a fiery plate.
Fiery circle.
A fiery circle, yeah. A fiery circle, yes. So that's what we're in the middle of, with a little dome over us, like Goshen. Like, we're not being affected by this fire, but everything around us is being consumed. And then we see in the next chapter that Yahushua, and it doesn't give us details how, but he's going to remake the heaven and earth right in front of our eyes. Right in front of us, he's going to remake all of this stuff, and all of this stuff is going to, and Yahuwah himself is finally going to be seen coming down with his people. But if you go back to the study that we did, one of the things that I wanted to emphasize on was the wrath of the Lamb, the difference between the wrath of the Lamb and the wrath of the Father. The wrath of the Lamb, the wrath of the Father is the plagues that falls on the earth while we're here. And then the wrath of the Lamb is what happens to everybody when Yahushua comes. So let me show you what it looks like, to show you how, and then you tell me, oh, here we go. So I'm gonna read this real quick. Isaiah 33, verse 14. It says, "The sinners of Zion are afraid. fearfulness have surprised the hypocrites. Who among us shall dwell with the devouring fire? Who among us shall dwell with the everlasting burnings? And then is about to tell you who. He that walks righteously, speaks uprightly, he that despises the gains of oppressions, that shakes the hands, that holds bribes, that stops his ears from hearing blood, that shuts his eyes from seeing evil, he shall dwell on high. His place of defense shall be the munitions of the rocks. Bread shall be given, and his water shall be sure. Now watch this. Verse 17 tells you, it says, your eyes will see the king in his beauty. And it says, they shall behold the land that is very far off. So your eyes are going to see his beauty. What is everybody else going to see? Right? Let's look at this. Look at this. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 4. You there, Aria?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All right. Where is the promise of his coming, right? These are scoffers, right?
Mhm.
Verse 3. In the last days, there's going to be scoffers talking about where's Yahushua? Where is he? Where's the promise of his coming?
Mm.
So he's trying to explain, just like the earth was reserved and destroyed by water, by Noah, the overflowing of water and died. It says this is how it's going to be at the coming. The heavens and the earth, which are now, by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto fire. Now, it's not talking about the fire that comes down. It's talking about the heaven and earth. Now, remember, heaven and earth don't get destroyed at the 7 last plagues. Heaven and earth gets destroyed at Revelation 20. You see that? So he's talking about everything is reserved to be destroyed at that time. But what's going to happen when Messiah comes? Verse 9. The master is not slack concerning his promise. He's just patient. But he says the day of Messiah, of the master, is going to come like a thief in the night. Now, what's going to happen when he comes? It says the heavens shall pass away with a great noise. The elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth and the works that are in it shall be burned up. And it says, all these things shall be dissolved. What manner of person are you supposed to be in holiness, in the holy conduct? Looking for the hastening of the coming day of Elohim, wherein the heavens, so the coming day of Elohim, look at what it says here. The coming day of Elohim, where the heavens is going to be on fire and dissolve, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. That's why Isaiah 33 says, who's going to be able to stand in this situation right here? Who's going to be able to be alive in this situation? It says those who are righteous will see him in his beauty. But look at what the wicked is looking at. The wicked is looking at fire, melting, mountains melting, elements burning. This is what they're seeing. So when you look at Revelation, it talks about the wrath of the Lamb. It says that everybody's going to run to the mountains for the mountains to fall on them. There's not going to be no nations trying to figure out how to follow Yah, giving gifts to Israel. No, that already happened. That's not going to happen. At this point, those who are wicked that are Israelites, those who are wicked that are in the nations, they're not going to be gathered together to be taken. The very presence, it says that Yahusha is going to come in the glory of his Father. How can you have the glory of the Father on you and wicked people could look at you? You can't. That's why 1 Corinthians 15 it says that in the last trump, in the twinkling of an eye, that everybody will be changed from mortal to immortal. Why? Because you won't be able to look at Yahusha if you're mortal. You have to change to immortality or you won't be able to withstand. You see what I'm saying? So the gift of immortality comes when he comes. He says, I'm coming and my reward is with me. But reward don't mean good. It's neutral. So his reward for the righteous is with him, but his reward for the wicked is with him as well. So 2 Thessalonians talks about when he comes, He's going to remember what they did to my people, and he is going to punish the people when he comes. And no nations, if they're not already a part of Yah's nation, they are not going to be. That's it. Now, judgment already stops. Like nobody, people think that Yah is going to keep on fixing stuff, and that's what people keep saying. Like when Yah comes, he's going to fix Israel. That's like a slap in the face to his ruach. His ruach is everything. If the ruach is all Yahusha need to walk righteously, why are we saying that we need more than the ruach? We need the ruach, and we need to wait for Yahusha to come, and we need to wait till we get to Jerusalem, and we need to wait till. Nah, all he needed was the ruach. That's all we need. But we're not taking advantage of it.
So it's Brother Jadiel, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, bro.
It's okay, it makes sense. I don't think why my brain wasn't connecting the second there's a reason for it. But if you don't at the return of Yahushua, if you're not changing the instant the righteous, right, and see the reward of the righteous, right? It's safe to assume if you don't get up from the dead, obviously, I'm just speaking like I wouldn't know, right, unless I'm changing the instance. But those that would get up from the dead and those that would be changed in an instance, the righteous, right? So that 1,000-year millennium reign, rulership begins, and Yahushua is the king. So I think I was confused because all the wicked is destroyed. This is what I'm getting now. But then it's safe to assume if you don't get up from the dead or be changed in an instance during the first resurrection, it's pretty much a wrap for anyone else, right? Like, like oh my dad, let's just say I knew I'm one that's gonna be right. My dad, where's my dad? If I would know that, which I know I wouldn't, but you say
that is a very important statement that you said. This is why in Revelation 21, after the new heaven and new earth is made, that's why it says that yahuah is going to wipe away every tear for the last time. Because it's not people looking at these things like this is happy. Like he just had to destroy people he loved. We just watched people that we love try to take the city from us. You see, we're in the city, and then the people that we love is being deceived by Satan, making them think that they could surround the city and take it from us. We're watching this because we're in the city. And because we're in the city, Yah is not going to allow nobody to take us. That's why I have a study called Yah's Strange Act. It's in Isaiah. It talks about how he's going to defend Israel from Revelation. From this point, Revelation 20, it's a response. It's a replication of what he said in Isaiah 28. He said, I'm going to do my strange work, my strange act, just like in Perizim, or he mentions two instances, and one of those instances was hail coming from the sky and destroying Israel's enemies. And in Revelation, you have the fire coming down from the sky, destroying Israel's enemies. So it's this, he gives us, and then he calls it his strange act. Why? Because it's only going to happen one time. It's a foreign act because it's only going to happen one time, and that's it. He has never destroyed a soul. He's destroyed you and put you to sleep, but he has never destroyed a being from existence. All those wicked people that died, they still exist in the grave, but there's going to be a time in which they will not exist. That is something that Yah is only going to do one time. Satan was created, and from that time he was created, he was never destroyed. He is going to be destroyed once at the very end, and he is never going to exist again. This is his strange work, and this is not something that Yah is looking forward to. He doesn't take pleasure in the death of the wicked. You see that? He didn't say he doesn't take pleasure of the death of the righteous. He takes vengeance for the righteous being killed, but he doesn't take pleasure in the wicked dying. So This is why the last tear has to be wiped in Revelation 21 instead of, any time before. Like, we're not going to be happy walking around here like, yeah, get them, yeah. No, because we're going to see our family there. We're going to see people that rejected what we said to them, warnings that we told them. People that Yah is going to be able to show us the things that he showed them that they rejected. You see what I'm saying? Because it tells you that you have to judge with Messiah. So he has to tell you his judgment, right? He has to reveal to you and share with you how he's going to judge. So imagine, and this is just right now, I'm going to tell you my imagination about this. Imagine Yah comes to me and he's telling me, my judgment is set, for your brother, for your brothers, my brothers that, me and my, that I grew up with my father and my mother. So judgment is set for your brothers. How you think I'm gonna feel? Yeah, go ahead and kill my brothers. Go ahead and kill my mother. Why would? What's gonna happen? Is there a way? Is there another way? Can we do that? I know your righteousness is true. I know your judgment, but there's something. It's like, that's my mother, and that's my brother, and that's my cousins, and that's people I love. That's people I fought for. That's people So what is he doing? Why is he taking so long? Why does he let them surround the city? So we can see this is the only thing they're going to do. If they remain, this is all they're going to do. Satan is going to have access to their mind anytime he wants. So I'm going to be watching from the city, my brother, my mother, my aunts, my uncles trying to kill me and take me out of the city because of the deception that they allowed Satan to get them in, because that's all they have left is deception. I am going to have to agree for fire to come down. But he's going to have to wipe the tears from my eyes afterwards. And that's what he said. He's going to wipe the tears one last time from our eyes. And then he's going to show us something that would blow our minds and fill our hearts. But we're going to mourn with Yahushua. We're going to mourn with Yah. This is not something he wants to do. This is something that's strange to him. You see what I'm saying? So when people are looking at life, they're looking at life too frivolously because of what people teach as reincarnate. People teaching reincarnation now. People teaching that if you're an Israelite, you're going to keep on coming back until you do it right. That's Hinduism. Like, that's Hinduism. That's insane. That's insane. That's literally insane. You're going to keep on coming back until you do it right.
Yeah, it's straight from Hasatan, right? Because
straight from the devil. So what do you think people going to do? People ain't going to take it serious. Hey, I'm just going to come back and do it again. I'm going to just come back and do it again. Then you have other people. Oh, there's 1,000 years that we get to fix it.
yes.
What you mean 1,000 years? Fix it. Peter just said he was waiting this long to fix it. He's waiting for you to let it be fixed. That's the time that you have now, is the time that people are saying, yo, he's taking too long.
Yeah, that's
but
when I saw.
So if Peter's saying that, scoffers going to say Yahushua is taking too long, and we're saying he's going to give us another 1,000 years? No. He's already purposefully taking a long time so more people could be saved. And you think when he comes back, all right, guys, we got to last 1,000 years? No.
Yeah, that's when I realized the gravity of it through that teaching, Brother Jody. I was like, man, there's a lot of people, like I was thinking prior to that, like, oh yeah, you got 1,000 years, it's gonna be more than immortals, and you get it right. You want to see Hasatan and Lake, in the pit and with the beast and the false prophet. But no, that's it. And when I realized that, I wouldn't wish this on anyone. I've known some people in my life that's been pretty heinous, We all
Yeah.
can probably think of someone. But man, I just think I wouldn't wish this on even my worst enemy because they don't know what awaits. They don't know because they don't take it serious. They don't understand the eternal separation and what the implications of that really
Right.
mean. And when you brought out that teaching, bro, it's like how short the time
Right.
really is.
Right.
That's
I
that.
had a dream one time, right? And people always tell me, like, I didn't come to Yah, I used to be in shootouts and my friends killed in front of me. That didn't change my heart. People, even when I came to Messiah, I didn't people having dreams of burning and all. And I'm like, what my wicked mind would I'll be like, yeah, I'll be alive burning forever. It's fine. I'm alive burning forever. How y'all gave me a dream that it was a weird dream because it was like it felt real and it felt like there was a fire and that during the fire I ceased. It was like in the dream I couldn't feel anything. And I didn't even see nothing. I couldn't feel nothing. I couldn't hear nothing. It was like my existence was gone. And that scared the crap out of me. To the fact that I wasn't burning forever, living, I didn't exist. My existence was gone. Everything that I was gone. I was just like, this is not, that's more fearful to me. That's more fearful to me than burning forever, you know. But Yahusha wouldn't burn you forever. That's why he says according to your works, because there's a level, there's an ending to the according part. It's according to something. It's a measurement. You see what I'm saying? So the idea of not existing frightens me. You know, the idea of my kids not existing in like what you just said is another nightmare, which is why I try to teach my kids, study with my kids every day, pray, teach about Yah every day. You know why? It's just crazy, man. It's crazy to think that you will resurrect and your kids are not there. That's like what are we that's crazy to me. That's why I don't care. Like you're not stopping me from doing this. You're not stopping me from telling my kids what they need. You're not stopping me from telling my children what they need to do. They're not stopping me. It's insane to think about. I'm gonna wake up without my family with me. That you got to be out of your mind if I'm gonna allow this world to make me be afraid to do what I need to do for my kids so they can get their salvation. If I need to keep them out of school, help them to get a trade and a business and get a GED, forget about the norms of this world just so they can have their salvation. I don't care what it is. I don't care what it is. And none of us should feel like any hindrances to, you know, that's a crazy reality that many people will have to face. How about the children entering into the kingdom without their parents? Without their parents. Praise God, the way that society will be at that time is that they're not going to be alone, but like how they would be on this earth. But children waking up without their parents, parents waking up without their children. That's insane to me. That's why it's like we need to do whatever is necessary to relay the importance of salvation and allow the power of Yah to move properly when we put in our efforts properly, not enforceful, not taking away Yah's seed and hindering his work, but sharing the word, sharing wisdom every single chance that you get. Don't waste no time. Don't waste no time. We don't have no 1,000 years. Then you have people thinking there's another type of Exodus. We are in the wilderness. We are in the wilderness now. What did John the Baptist say? John the Baptist say, I'm a voice crying in the wilderness. Where was he? He was in Jerusalem. So if he was in the wilderness talking to dark people, dark minds in Jerusalem, where you think we're at? We're in the wilderness right now, talking to people in darkness. Isaiah 60, darkness will cover the earth and worse darkness will cover the people. But your light, Yahuwah's glory will rise on you, and kings will come to the brightness of your rising. They're going to see you in this dark world. You see what I'm saying? Like, we are in the wilderness right now. This is the Exodus situation. Just for the fact that we're here talking about the truth is an Exodus already. We are already being cultivated and disciplined and all of these things so that we can enter into the promised land. That's the last part of this whole situation is promised land, not wilderness. You see what I'm saying? People are misconstruing the Exodus. So now people thinking that they're going to have another 40 years. There's some people saying there's another 40 years, another 1,000 years. It's Satan, any way that Satan can get you to wait is he's going to win. And all he wants to do is like hurt you and hurt Yah. And he's going to hurt Yah because Yah is going to have to destroy people that he loves. But he wants to do the same thing to you. And we're going to be hurt. But we need to do whatever we need to do to try to limit that pain. Tell everybody that we know and let them make the choice. If they don't want to be around us, we can't do nothing else after that. But we have to live our life in front of the nations, in front of the world, in front of people. You know what I mean?
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that. That brings it home. Yeah. Because that teacher moved me, man. Cause it's just new. I knew it because I'm like, you won't be able to stand in his glory. Oh man, that's you back it up with verses. So my whole perspective had to change because I was, in that school of thought. Okay, there's gonna be morals and like they teach it, right?
Yeah. And then I think I was talking to Brad about sometimes we look at the phrasing and the way that we looked at it before kind of clouds the way that we view it. Because we're unlearning things for years. So if you look at these things again and it comes up again, listen, don't keep bringing the same thing up if you need to, because we need to make sure we solidify it. You don't know how long I kept bringing stuff up in my own study. Like, let me look at this again. Let me study this again. Let me look at, Trinity. Well, I remember this. Let me study this again until I was solidified with all the scriptures harmonizing together, showing me, so there's a lot of symbolisms that refer to what's going on today. Even when it says you will learn war no more, people think that's talking about the new kingdom, but that's what happens when you come to Yah. When you come to Yah, you will learn war no more. When you come to Yah, you're going to bang your swords into plowshares and you're going to start laboring in the field instead of with the sword. Like, this is now. But people think that is a prophecy of later. So they think the new covenant, some people thinking the new covenant didn't even start yet. What does that mean? That means that people are not even in the new covenant because they didn't accept it. They don't believe that it exists yet. So they didn't accept the very covenant that Yah is offering to us today. They're saying the new covenant don't exist until later on. That means that you can't be forced into a covenant. You have to accept it by faith. So if you don't believe you're in the new covenant, you're not. There's so much things that Satan is doing to people, genuine people who want to believe, that all we need to do is just open our mouths and say, hey, that's not right. That's all we have to do. Hey, I don't see it that way. You don't even say that's not right. I don't see it that way. This is how I see it. And then get into a conversation. That's all you have to say. I there was a point where that's all I was saying to people. I don't see it this way. Oh, I see it this way. Or, well, I see it a little differently. Well, I see it. Whatever you need to say in order to engage in a conversation where you can share something that's true over something that's false, do it. Do it. Sometimes you got to be like, nah, that's not it. And then sometimes you got to be wise and be like, well, I see it this way. Why don't you check it? Why don't you consider this? Why don't you check this out? Oh, check this verse out. this is why I think this, you know, it brings you into a conversation where people have to at least hear something different, and you don't have to engage in no, offensive back and forth or anything like that. But
Thank you, brother.
yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, you got me with those. Those are the same thoughts I had, man. These are not thoughts for the weak at heart. Like, you have to gain strength from Yah, because this is gonna be a real situation, a real time that's happening, and it's only gonna get more realer. So we need to when we put on. I gotta put out the rest of the armor of Yah. I did the armor of Yah series. I broke down each element in different videos, so I'm gonna be putting those out. I did say it, give it all together, but the armor of Yah, I did elaborate a little bit more, but I'm gonna put those out in the following week. Is gonna be coming out periodically, but in the Patreon I'm gonna try to upload all of it. But so let me go to Sister Alexandria. I'm sorry, Sister. I know you had your hand up, and then we're gonna close.
No, no need to apologize. This has been the most important discussion, every discussion that we have of all of our lives. And I just want to tie it to what Brother Ariel was saying, because I have been reading Isaiah, and I just wanted to tie it back to what he was speaking on. Chapter 13, Isaiah. Brother Jadiel, is that going into what his question is about? When I read it, I feel like it's going into the day of Yahuwah.
Mm-hmm.
That's chapter 13. And then chapter 14, from what I'm trying to understand, my perspective is that it's kind of describing what's happening to his people, and then also to the people that are not his people.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Chapter 13, where it says, "For the day of Yahuwah is at hand, it shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. Therefore shall all hands be faint and every man's heart." It's not talking about the righteous guys, because it says in Isaiah 33 that Yah's people will see his beauty when he comes back. This is talking about the wicked. It says, "They shall be afraid, pangs and sorrows shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman that travailed. They shall be amazed one at another. Their faces shall be as flames. Behold, the day of Yahuwah comes, cruel both with wrath and fierce anger to lay." You see what I'm saying? Who's surviving this?
Nobody.
Who's surviving this? What wicked person, what wicked nation is surviving this? But look at Israel. Yahuwah will have mercy on Jacob. Will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. The strangers will be a part of the house of Jacob. The people shall take them, bring them to their place. The house of Israel shall possess them in the land of Yahuwah's servants and the handmaids, and they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. Now, many times they would, I think Sister Jamie brought out very good instance of how it referred like a personification, referring, not a personification, but symbolically referring to the land of Israel as a prey. The land of Israel as a prey, right? So it sounds like the land of Israel is like a person or animal or something like that, to devour. But the way that they were treating the land was like how animals would treat their prey. They would devour it. Another thing that it says was about the servitude of Canaan. It says that Canaan is going to serve Shem. When Noah prophesied in Genesis chapter 9 that Canaan will serve Shem. And what that meant was that Canaan's land, which is Israel, will be at the service of Israel's hand, meaning that they will be able to use the land of Canaan however they want. But the wording was that Canaan was going to serve them. Canaan never served Israel. Canaan never served Shem. You see what I'm saying? So when you hear about the servants and the taking them captives, it's talking about taking over their possessions. Like, we are going to rule over this earth. Every single location that these nations ruled, we would rule it, and it will serve us. We will possess it. It's not talking about people serving
People.
us. We're kings. We're kings and queens. We're priests. We don't need to serve. We don't need nobody to serve us. We're immortal. We're immortal. We're not sick. We're not weak. It even said there's there's not going to be no night anymore. We're not sleeping. We're going to be awake with Yahuwah. He never slumbers. We're never going to slumber. What we need servants for? We're the servants of the Most High. You see? So the idea of taking captive other nations is referring to their locations, their geographical location. This is how Yah began to teach us this. Let me show you this, just to show that the wording of taking these nations captive is not talking about taking people necessarily captive. It's talking about the land that those people own will be ours for the taking. Right here. It says, curse be Canaan. Genesis 9:25. Curse be Canaan. It says, a servant of servants shall ye be to his brethren. It says, blessed be to the yahuah Elohim of Shem. And then it says, and Canaan shall be his servant. Now, Canaan is not talking about the person here. It's talking about the land of Canaan. Now, the land of Canaan didn't exist here, only the person. So it says, Elohim shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant, meaning that the children of Japheth is going to live in Canaan. And that's what you have now. The Ashkenazis living in Canaan is serving Japheth's children right now. But Yah is going to restore Israel, and all the nations' land is going to be captive to Yah's people. Yah's people is going to help hold all the nations captive, meaning we will possess the whole earth. This is the promise to Abraham. Let me show you this one verse real quick, and then I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna let you continue, sister. It says in Romans chapter 4, verse 13. Look at what it says here. It says, for the promise that he should be the heir of what?
The world.
Abraham, it says, it was not to Abraham or to his seed through the law, but through righteousness of faith. So all of us is going to be the heir of the world. So all of the nation's land is going to serve Yah's people, because we're going to possess the whole earth. According to Revelation 21, we inherit a new earth that used to belong to all these nations. It doesn't mean that we're going to have slaves. This is what these people are looking forward to, ruling these slaves with the rod of iron or whatever they want to do to people.
Which is so strange, because why would they think that the Father would think that is a good thing? Yeah. That is not a good thing.
He didn't even allow us to do it while we were allowed to have slaves. When Israel had slaves, they treated them like sons. They married them to their daughters. Like they became like faithful servants. They served Yah. Like when they took people captive, they couldn't treat them the way that they were treated. But you have a lot of people saying they're going to treat people the way that they were treated. And that's not even Yah's personality.
No, it's not.
You know, so if you're going to receive his ruach, you got to have his personality with also. If you're not developing his personality, how can you say you're obedient to his ruach?
What did he say about if you can't forgive people as he forgives?
Oh, right. If you don't forgive people, then your Father in heaven won't forgive you. That's it.
That doesn't sound like you can walk around with somebody on a chain. So
I know, with the rod and iron saying here, you know, it's my turn. We got next. Next what?
You know?
You better make sure you next, because if you're not, you know, I don't want to see you outside the city trying to take it too. I don't want to see you on that side. I'm trying to see you on this side.
I'll be on this side.
You know, you want to be crying, or you want to be gnashing your teeth? Which one? That's it. That's the only options you got. No, but praise Yah. Thank you, sis.
Thank you.
So praise Yah. This was a great, deep. Of course, Ariel gotta bring us into the depths of the heart of the matter. You know, trying to make us all cry and stuff. Thank you, Ariel. But praise Yah. This is definitely again, like I was saying before, a refresher. Definitely, I feel refreshed, and I look forward to this Friday, next Wednesday. As much time as we could spend together in His Word. You know, that's what I'm praying that Yah will. Same, we were talking about tithes, just praying that Yah will help us sell these projects and sell these merchandise, whatever we could do to free us to do this as much as possible. We don't have to just meet at the feast. We could have weekend feasts. Like this is what me and my wife was doing a couple years back when we were selling a lot of things. We had a lot of financial freedom because we were just doing a lot of different things. And then we would take a couple of years off and we would just set up conferences and Shabbat meetings, and we would rent libraries and be like, okay, not libraries, but conference rooms in the libraries for free. Not trying to tell you we got money, but free libraries that will allow us to use their conference rooms and meet on Shabbats in this city, go to that city. That's what we were doing for a couple of years. And then, finances got a little hectic and then we had to redirect. But I believe that Yah used that time to just develop us more, cultivate us more, prepare us more. And now that, that passion and that fire is raising up, as well as a couple more kids on there too. I didn't know we was gonna have two more, but okay. Go ahead, Brad.
Hey man, so if some of us can't make it down to Atlanta,
Yeah.
and see the merchandise, y'all gonna have a website or anywhere to put it up on?
Oh yeah. My wife has a Shopify. I'll send you the Shopify link.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then
that'll work. I appreciate that because I was thinking about the other day about getting some stuff like that. So
yeah. My wife, people these uh order these bracelets and the charm, not the charm, but the scripture.
yeah. Oh yeah, there you go. That's nice.
So it says Abba Yahuwah, and then it has a scripture at the bottom, Galatians 4:6. And then people order it based off of it's custom. So people say, I want it to look like this, I want it to have this color, and then my wife puts it together according to what people want. So that's on the website also.
Okay. Yeah, I
And
like
then I
that.
have me, I have Yahuwah chains and I have Yahuwah hats, and just replace all my other stuff that I used to wear. I didn't want to say Yankee hats because Ariel got one on side. But praise Yah. Brother Ben, Sister Jamie.
Yeah, we just won the link too, so I don't know if you just like maybe could give everybody maybe for your wife on Friday or something and just put it in the chat somewhere or something. We can.
Yeah. I'm a matter of fact, I'll send it to you guys. I'm gonna just, and if you guys have my email, so if
Yeah.
you want it, but I'm gonna get it and I'll post it and so I can have it. My wife has these links. I'm just the driver. I just drive her to those places. But I'm gonna get the link and I'll send it to you.
Okay. Shalom, man. Thanks.
All right.
Hey,
Shalom,
great.
Not on
guys.
Facebook, so if you text it
Not
to
on
me,
Facebook. I'm gonna
good.
text it to you. Yeah.
This
All
is,
right. Praise Yah. You guys have a blessed night. Yah bless you guys.
Yeah, hallelujah. Shalom.
oh.
Shalom. Hallelujah.
Shalom.
Shalom.